All right, so we've got Poe. We've got this character who is resentful of his current situation. He's in the noodle shop. He doesn't love to be in the noodle shop. He's aspiring to somehow just be associated with greatness. Like he wants to be in this kung fu world. He wants to be, he wants to be a legendary warrior, or at least get to go hang out with the legendary warriors. He's kind of a fanboy when he starts out, right? And of course, in the setup of this movie, he's put on a path where he could potentially be great. But it doesn't go smoothly, as you would expect. He's not accepted into the group by his colleagues, by the Furious Five. He's not really accepted by his presumed master, Shifu. He sort of blunders his way around a little bit, finds a way to at least be allowed to hang out by making noodles for them, sort of being part of the team. But he's not really making progress on the martial arts thing for a good chunk of the movie. And so let's talk about our mountaintop scene. What unlocks his potential path to greatness here? What's the scene where we kind of see them turning the corner to figuring out that he might be able to move forward?
All right, Brian, our mountaintop moment for this episode, and let's remind the audience who might be new here, our mountaintop moment is all about this emblematic scene that kind of ties the whole episode together. It's where we go to see from a high vantage point. We are able to see a little bit more broadly. And from there, we're able to take this specific application inside of this story that we're looking at and apply it to our lives through general modeling and frameworks, and even just kind of looking through the glass and seeing stories in our lives that are similar. So for our mountaintop this time, we're going to talk about the confrontation between Shifu and Poe. Because up until the point in the movie where Oogway passes on to the next world or whatever he's doing there, and he gives this information to Shifu that, like, no, you need to reframe the way that you're viewing the Dragon Warrior. Up until this point, you're just trying to put him through all the ropes, all the tests that you would normally put a master through, and he's failing them all. And so you're disappointed in him, and you have no level of belief that this is actually the Dragon Warrior. He's asking him to reframe it. So this isn't the mountaintop. This is just kind of setting up the mountaintop. So everything to that point, Poe and Shifu have just been not on the same page, right? Poe's acting one way. He's still kind of acting like the outsider, like you mentioned. Shifu's acting aloof, and like Poe is not on his level.
He keeps failing, and they keep setting up things for him to try to do, and he's terrible. And so he keeps failing at it, and so he's getting demotivated, and his teacher's getting demotivated. And meanwhile, the threat is looming, and they're like, what are we going to do?
Yep. So they end up on the top of this mountain near the monastery where they're practicing, and it's great. You get this confrontation finally where they're actually transparent with each other, and Poe tells Shifu, like, how are you going to turn me into the Dragon Warrior? And he lets it all out. He lets his emotions out. He's like, yes, up until this point, I've just been faking it. Yes, but I'm not growing. I'm not learning anything from you. And I have no belief, based on what you're currently telling me, that you're going to turn me into the Dragon Warrior. So maybe I should do what you've just been asking me to do this whole time, and I should just go home.
Right. And I love this because, he's discouraged, right? This is the dark moment where he doesn't have belief in the future. But the reason he's so discouraged is because he does actually want to succeed, right? He does actually want to be great. Right. And that is a thing that I think we can lose track of as leaders, is that everybody wants to be great at something. You don't necessarily know what it is. You get figuring out how to get that aligned with what you need as a leader, or what the group needs, what the company needs, what the world needs. Like, that's still the challenge. But we often look at people who are discouraged, or people who are non-standard candidates, or people who are unskillful, and assume that they're satisfied with that state. And I really love this kind of, this raw emotion of just like, how are you going to turn me into something amazing? But the subtext is, because I want to believe that. Like, I'm right there on the edge of, like, I'm about to quit, but I haven't quit yet because I'm bought in to the idea. I just don't see the path. I don't see how I'm going to get there. You can't trust the process unless you can see how the process working, unless you can see it working for you. And so at this point in the movie, Poe has not seen the process that they're putting him through is the process that took infants and turned them into ninjas. And he's not in either of those situations. And he just keeps literally bouncing off it. Like, it's not working. So he can't see it working. And so he's starting to get frustrated, but it's not because he's changed his high level goals. It's because he just doesn't know how to get there.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway there is Poe does want to be great. And inside of each of us, we believe most everybody does want to be great. Even when they're not necessarily exuding that confidence when you're talking to them, let's say your team members aren't necessarily coming forth to you and telling you, like, we can do great things, we can overcome the obstacles. I know that we're budget constrained, but we can make this work. Yet, each of us wants to be able to do extraordinary things. We want to be able to overcome. We want to be able to feel satisfied at the end of the day. That's just inherent to what it is to be human. And so to figure out, okay, well, if the current process isn't allowing Poe to achieve that greatness, right? We said greatness is a process. It's an everyday waking up and doing of the things that you need to do in order to be successful. But like you said, Brian, there has to be some sort of a feedback on that.
Right.
You have to feel like you're making progress with the process that you're taking.
Yeah, so if you're in the situation where you're a leader that has, and you have somebody approach you with this kind of a conversation, right? It will often sound like complaining. It will sound like whining. It will sound like, discouragement. It will sound like, a lack of commitment potentially, right? But if somebody is like pointing out that they don't know how to succeed, that's an opportunity. That is, they're saying that they would like to succeed. They're saying that they would like to feel progress. They would say they would like to feel alignment, and they're not there yet. But the potential's there. The hook is there for you to potentially get them on the path to success, get them onto the path to a flavor of greatness that is useful for both you and them. So, and I know, Drew, you've got a quote for us that I really love that we talked about in the pre-show in this direction, right?
Yeah, so I want to bring in this quote here from Martin Luther King Jr., of course, quote machine. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love.
Anybody can serve is a nice reframing of it, right? I love that conflating of service and greatness, right? And so, yeah, the fun part about this from the viewpoint of the learner, from the viewpoint of the Poe in this story, right, is if you're in that position of intense frustration about not knowing how to reach your goals, like, yeah, that's time to have a hard conversation with your boss, with your teacher, with your mentor, with your coach. Like, I'm not getting there. I don't feel like I'm getting I don't feel like I'm getting there any closer. And be transparent, like, and I really want to, like, it's not that I'm not willing to work hard, right? What can we change so that I can see myself successful? What can we change so I can feel progress? That's the learner part of it. Now, and I think we're going to spend the next episode talking about the teacher part of it, the mentor, the coach. Like, what does that look like if you are in that role as a leader? But just for this episode, being sensitive to the fact that that's there, that the fact that you might have a panda that's going to be really good at kung fu, even if that wasn't your expectation. That's a thing. That's a framing for every interaction that you can have with the people under you that may be struggling.
Yeah, to see it starts out right by seeing yourself as being able to achieve greatness by doing the thing every single day, by, as MLK tells us, finding your opportunity to serve, finding what your unique skill set and circumstances allow you to do to serve. And so if you're the manager who's managing somebody who you're trying to help them to achieve greatness, it starts with looking at what you are doing to achieve your greatness, right? Because you're going to need to serve that person. If you're the dissatisfied associate in the situation who's working for somebody who's asking for help, like you said, Brian, that complaint that the current things we're doing aren't working, that I don't have the skill that I need or whatever, it's not oh man, I have this associate that just doesn't do a good job. And, they're always complaining. It's like, okay, they're looking for something better. So as that person, whichever situation we find ourselves in, the opportunity is to see, okay, what can I do to serve? For me, one of the things that I like to do to center myself when I feel like I am getting a little bit aimless is, all right, well, maybe I need to stop working this morning and I need to go serve somebody this morning. I need to stop focusing on achieving this very specific goal that I'm frustrated with.
Hmm.
or I need to stop focusing on improving myself or improving the people around me when I'm not getting the right feedback. And I
Right.
just need to go out and hands on, make a meal for somebody, serve a meal to somebody, have a session with somebody who is really in a tough spot in life, and just listen to them and, share stories with them, ask them questions, whatever it might be, because it's that act of service that often unlocks the flow for us. That is the daily greatness, and getting caught up in achieving the metric is the greatness.
Right.
That's a trap.
Right. No, I really like that. That's a great. There's a great redirect there, and the redirect doesn't have to be like I leave the office and go do a completely different thing. That can be like I'm not making progress on my thing, or I'm a little bit stuck. Can I just go help somebody else with something? Right? Can I make something go better in my environment? Can I be around somebody that's good at something and sort of just provide service where I can find it? Right. So the example in this movie is like Poe figures out that he can, hey, I can make noodles for these guys, like I can hang out with these great kung fu warriors, and at least I'm really good at this, and so I'm going to bring that as my service that sort of earns their trust and finds me a way to have a place here while I'm figuring out the rest of my stuff. And of course, in the in the inevitable logic of the movie, then that turns out to be the unlock, right? Is that once you've turned out to be great at one thing, you can actually leverage that into being great at other, right? You can, once you've learned what that repetition and skill and recognition of skill looks like inside yourself in one domain, you can transfer it to others. So it's super on the nose in this movie, right? His love of food is what unlocks his love of martial arts. But what puts him in that position is his persistence and his desire to be associated with something greater than what he's currently doing, and his willingness to be sort of humbled in that context once he gets there. Like
Mm.
I actually stink. I'm actually terrible at this, and what I'm good at is making noodles. You know, help me out. What do I got to do next? How do I get out of this box? Like that humility and honesty, coupled with the persistence and desire, are the things that are the unlock for him. And I suspect that that's going to be a lesson we see over and over again, but probably not a bad way to look at it.
Mm. That's great. And in the end, is it his a little bit maybe it's his unlock of the combination of being the noodle boy, the food guy, and the being the how that unlocks his martial arts capability. Like partly
Mm-hmm.
that is how he defeats Tai Lung,
Yeah.
but partly how he defeats Tai Lung is the same exact way that he approaches everything. It's by being the servant in the situation. At first he's like, all right, fine. Well, I'm useless. So at least Shifu doesn't believe in me and he just wants me to leave. The dragon warrior isn't a real thing. So I'm just going to go and at least help my dad and help the townsfolk get out of here. And then he has that moment where he recognizes what the dragon warrior actually is, that it's inside of him the whole time. And that to be the dragon warrior, he has to just be himself and he has to serve regardless of the external stimuli that he's getting, regardless of the feedback from Shifu or the Furious Five or any of these other things, or his dad for that matter. He has to just go serve. And that's what he does, right? He shows up with a very minimal plan to defeat Tai Lung. He's like, I learned previously that I can fight for the dumpling, so I will imagine the Dragon Warrior scroll as the dumpling, and that will be step one. But he doesn't know anything beyond that because he realizes that his greatness is to just put one foot in front of the other and show up for the things that he's supposed to show up for, and everything else tends to unlock itself.
Yeah. No, that's fun. You're absolutely right. And it's he doesn't presume that he's amazing at something, but he is surrounded by examples of people that are working really hard to be amazing, right? He's got that going for him even from very early on, right? Like he doesn't want to be great at noodles, but he at least learned his father or stepfather, the the duck that's raising him is right. Such a ridiculous movie, right? But but he's got this example, like somebody who's completely committed to being really good at something, like, and it's not the thing that he's excited about, but again, you can sort of transfer that across domains. Like, I'm just going to be super sincere about the thing that I'm excited about and go run really hard at it. And if it's my turn to serve, then it's my turn to serve. Okay, I guess I gotta, I'm gonna go step up.